Welcome on into 19 on the Clock, your Tri-State high school and college sports podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pushkar. Joining me is my co-host, Jackson McCarty. Jackson, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah as well. We're recording on Wednesday,
Yes.
so it'll be coming out on Thursday and Friday. So, your festivities may be over, but
I could feel the collective, the folks watching this go, why are you recording on Christmas? As soon as you said that.
we drew the short straws. It's okay.
We did. But we're happy to be here. And it's time and a half, so can't complain too much.
Yeah, bosses. Love you guys. Merry Christmas to our bosses.
Oh, my goodness.
But yeah, it's festivities may be over, but we have plenty of great high school basketball. We've got college football, so much fun sports happening.
Well, and what is bowl season if not a holiday?
That's what I say every year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we at my family's house, we gather around and we watch college football, and that's the holiday.
It's the only time of the year where I go, oh, this random school from Florida is playing this school from New Mexico. Yeah, I want to watch that.
Yeah.
You kidding me?
And then we eat bacon from Amish country.
Yeah.
That's a real story. My dad just drove 90 minutes to go find this mythical bacon in Amish country in Missouri. But
I love that.
Yeah, sorry. There's your holiday story out of me for this one. But
I was gonna say I was always cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning, family. So.
Is there anywhere open right now that's selling Christmas or cinnamon rolls?
Ooh.
Probably not, right?
Probably not right now, but
There's got to be a gas. We can go get some honey buns from a gas station or something and call it even.
we'll grab some Pillsbury from the CVS or something.
There we go.
We'll make it work.
But either way, you're going to need to load up on your snacks, load up on your dishes for this weekend because there is just a ton of insane college football going on, most notably a rematch from earlier in this year.
Yes, and the fun thing about this rematch is that's not even this weekend.
Oh.
It's next Wednesday. We're a whole week away.
This playoff
weird.
situation has rattled my brain.
Yes.
I'm used to waiting for bowl games. I'm not used to seeing a team play 1 week and then have to wait 2. And so then the Natty's probably 2 weeks removed from that, right?
Like a week and a half.
Okay.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah. So either way, you might as well go ahead and get the snacks ready for this game now.
Start stocking up now because it is a New Year's Day game.
Uh-huh.
And we're getting a classic matchup at this bowl. Big Ten playing the Pac-12, Ohio State playing Oregon in the Rose Bowl, Pasadena, California at 5 p.m. on New Year's Day.
Yep.
Like you said, this is a rematch from one of the games earlier this year. Ohio State, one of 2 losses for Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Oregon is coming in undefeated. This game had always been the game that people went, okay, well, yeah, Ohio State lost, but they're still the second best team in the country.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I know you'll dive into these numbers a little bit more, but they're out ahead of Oregon, on paper right now.
Yes, and that's very interesting. I think part of this always will play into the fact that it's tough to beat a team twice.
Right.
I do want to take a second though, because we've had a few games already, four bowl games already, or playoff games at home. Notre Dame beating Indiana, Ohio State beating Tennessee, SMU and Clemson losing their games against Texas and Penn State.
There you go.
There we go. I got through that.
I was like, who?
I always forget about Penn State, and I'm sorry, Penn State fans.
We're in the right market to forget about Penn State.
But
don't you worry.
yes, but the biggest complaint that I've seen online, and I'm sure you've heard it as well, is that these games are not competitive. Mm-hmm. These first round playoff games are not competitive.
Yep.
The average scores were still within about 2 touchdowns. I think Ohio State beating Tennessee was the biggest separation in scores.
Yeah.
And was the highest scoring game at the same time. Indiana Notre Dame was a little weird, where Notre Dame was up and they let Indiana score late in the 4th.
That was just go get a touchdown to end your year, whatever.
Yeah, but they still closed that gap.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like Notre Dame continued to run. I don't know, whatever. It's I'll take that as an argument. But people are keep saying that these are blowouts, and we didn't have the blowouts with the college football playoff when it was 4 teams. And
That's
we didn't
such a lie.
We didn't have blowouts with BCS.
Yeah. Totally.
So I got these numbers from Jason Kirk, who is part of the Shutdown Fullcast. Mm-hmm. podcast that I enjoy listening to. During the 14 playoff, average scores was 40 to 21.
Okay.
In the BCS, it was 33 to 18, and those were supposed to be the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country.
Right.
So if you're really like, if your whole thing is like, well, it should be 1 score difference, then like those didn't work either.
No, it shouldn't. The whole reason March Madness works is because sometimes you get those blowouts, but you let the smaller school.
But you also get the little guy to
Right.
beat. You get David taking down Goliath.
You get Clemson.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
You get St. Peter's.
Right.
I'll even bring that up.
Yeah.
Assaulting myself. But you look at FCS, Division II, Division III. These happen in the first rounds of playoffs. That's why those seeds are like that, where the best team doesn't have to play the next best team. They play the lowest ranked team of that.
Parity's not about being close; it's about being represented.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with, like Cincinnati. Whenever they played in their college football playoff game, or anytime, sorry, Fighting Irish fans, pretty much any time Notre Dame showed up in BCS or CFB, Oklahoma was a constant issue with that. Like,
absolutely.
And the only reason that we get some of these kind of closer scores like you're talking about is because now with that 12 team, there's more incentive to not just go to Georgia, Ohio State, LSU, Bama, those core groups of teams.
Yes.
So yeah, I've seen that discourse online, and I try not to spend any time looking at it because immediately in my brain I'm like, this is silly talk.
Yeah, and it's also like, well then Indiana shouldn't have been in the playoff, and it's like, no, that's not what that means. Like, just because you take out Indiana doesn't mean that putting in Alabama, I mean, that's everybody's big thing, but it's also like Alabama was still ranked lower. It doesn't mean that that's going to make any difference when they're playing a tough Notre Dame team.
A lot of these people just want conference championships.
Yes.
Which we already get.
Yes. Exactly.
Cat's out of the bag. We can see the top of the SEC and the top of the Big Ten play each other because that's been happening for years and years and years. The whole point of this thing is to get everybody involved.
Yeah.
And you can't do that with 4 teams.
Yes. So I just wanted to add that, and building off of that, I think this will be this will be a very close playoff game.
Well, last time we said that, with an Ohio State game, didn't quite shake out.
Yeah, I guess we did say that was going to be the closest. I think it was the biggest blowout
absolutely the biggest
of
blowout.
it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, well, hey.
If that's any indication,
who knows?
Congratulations on your win, Ohio State, because we will have willed that into existence.
But yeah, obviously the Oregon game this year was, within, I think, 3 points. It was within a touchdown, right? Something like that. Yeah.
I'll double check it, but
yeah, I should have written that down and I didn't. But I think even with Ohio State losing the game against Michigan, I do think them coming out strong against Tennessee last week. Doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily they got to warm up, they got to play the game early, they got to play a game first.
Right.
I don't like that argument all the time because I think these guys have all played. I guess both teams have actually played 13 games now.
Right.
To be fair, but I don't necessarily say that because Ohio State played last week, now Oregon's going to be cold or whatever. I think Oregon's going to be just fine. I could see this being within 3 points. I could see it being within a touchdown. If it goes beyond that, I think whoever is losing is doing something wrong, basically. Right. Looking at some numbers, we'll talk about the lines just that got set already. Ohio State 2.5-point favorites.
Right.
54.5-point total. ESPN's analytics machine put them at a 53.7% chance of winning.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to bring ESPN's
that's
up
really high
because it feels weird,
yeah.
And I don't know I don't know what goes into that mechanism and all that.
I mean, you can't get to 70 off this, but at least with this one, I understand them being 2-point favorites because you lose by 1 in Eugene. The point swing on being a neutral site, which honestly Oregon has to travel way shorter, but still travel. So I at least get that, but 70% is absurd. Is that what you said, right?
No.
Oh, I thought you said Ohio State was up or projected on the ESPN thing by
53.7.
Oh.
53%.
Okay, sorry.
But still favored.
Failed me. Yeah.
Still favored. College Football Insiders, their analytics project Oregon 23.3 points, Ohio State 21.5, putting Oregon at about 55.5% chance of winning.
Okay.
I like both numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State showed they're doing something different than the Michigan game.
Yes.
They figured something out. There's something that's going to work, and I think it can maybe work a little better than it did against Oregon earlier this year.
Yeah.
Oregon could also just come out and play the same game that they did, and likely hold back Ohio State.
I know we're obviously a few titles short of this mark, but Lanning does feel like he's kind of got the Georgia thing, the Bama thing going on for him.
Where Kirby knowing exactly what Bama, knowing Bama's,
he knows how the inner workings go. He knows what makes the clock tick, and that does kind of concern me a little bit on that front, just purely because if somebody has your number, you're not getting that back.
No.
Until that roster starts turning over a little bit. So, while I think Will Howard looked good last week and the running game looked phenomenal and things started to piece together like we had envisioned for the Buckeyes all year long, there is still a little bit of that mentality of like, okay, well, we did lose to this team. It was by 1 point, 32-31, but we did lose.
And we lost because of the clock thing at the very end, and would it have mattered if we had a second? Sure, whatever. Fine.
But beyond that's beside the point, really.
Yes.
So yeah, this one, to do it again, is the most interesting game of the weekend because Ohio State was by far the most interesting team to make it out of that first four.
It's this weird thing where I know fans of Ohio State are like kind of mad about the team so far. I think people who aren't Ohio State fans are a little tired of Ohio State, but I still think they're in this weird area where it's like they're good, but are they gonna do it?
Are they title good?
Yeah, and that's kind of what you would want to watch for at this point.
Yeah,
so.
And I don't think that's a question of roster talent worth mentioning.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so again, New Year's Day, 5 p.m., Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that they're keeping the classics with Pac-12, Big Ten.
They know where their bread's buttered.
We'll do a quick mention as well, the Sugar Bowl, because we did talk about Notre Dame and Indiana last week. Notre Dame is moving on. They're playing Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, New Orleans. 2.5 point favorites for Georgia in that with the books right now. 44.5 total. Advanced Analytics actually projecting Notre Dame as winners, half-point favorites. Which, sure.
Yeah. I
think so. Notre Dame did a lot of nice things. I saw Mike Golick Jr., who is a former player of Notre Dame now, and college football analyst, and does a lot with Bulls. He posted a clip of them running a jet sweep and how the offensive line kind of really adjusted well with that. The offensive line needs to do that better, though, against a Georgia team like this.
Yeah, it's apples to oranges. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot more sour to that Georgia front four just by nature, just because of the logo on their helmet. Those guys fight harder, because that is a prestigious defensive school to be at. So you got to earn your keep. I understand this line though. I know we talked about this right before the podcast, and I kind of questioned that. But Georgia, sans Carson Beck, even with Carson Beck, really not that trustful of an offense. And Notre Dame has looked phenomenal since the Northern Illinois game. So I understand wanting to put it close. I do figure Georgia probably wins, but there's a conversation to be had that I don't think was necessarily there for most previous years of Notre Dame's appearances in games like these.
And I also think for Georgia as well,
yeah.
In a way. So
yeah, absolutely.
That'll just be an interesting to keep an eye on and play it. So let's move back now.
Yep.
We were on New Year's Day. Let's move back to New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
We're going to go back in time.
Yeah, just slightly. Still ahead in time, but also back in time.
We got the Sun Bowl.
Back to the future, if you will.
Louisville playing Washington in El Paso. So again, the common thread that I have seen a lot of is 2.5 point favorites with books. Louisville, 2.5 point favorites, 49.5 point total. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will say I haven't looked at who all Louisville has lost to, like the transfer portal or to draft declarations and things like that. But this Washington team has not been as good as the year prior, for sure.
I think you could have removed as and stopped it good.
But I think they're good. But they're not great. They're not awesome. They're not fantastic. They're not. But they're still. I mean, they're still a bowl team.
I did down to decent.
And I think their schedule has. I think they had a tough schedule for what they were going to go up against.
Yeah, and they had a lot of changes happening just throughout the program.
Losing a coach, things like that. Yeah, so I do think that the fact that they got 6-6, got to a bowl, is still a good testament to the program.
Absolutely. But I don't think that they're Louisville.
No, and I think Louisville is still. I like Jeff Brom.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hide that as a Purdue fan, even if he did leave the program. But yeah, he knows offense, and I think Louisville's going to come out and play a strong offense. That's why, like, when you look at the college football insiders analytics, they do have them at a 52-point total, so about 3 points more.
Yep.
7-8 point favorites for Louisville. Yeah, I like that. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I think you take that pretty comfortably. Interested to see how that one folds out, and like you said, we do need a little bit more insight on, maybe it is some transfer issues or whatever that's causing those numbers to look like that. But even still, I think Louisville as a unit is just more together right now, and Washington's still dealing with those growing pains. So, still trust the Birds on this one.
Yeah, again, that's New Year's Eve, 2 p.m. In El Paso.
Yep.
And let's move on to our last one now, which is this Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Moving ahead. 4:30 p.m. Arizona Bowl, Tucson, Arizona.
Snoop Dogg.
It is the Snoop Dogg Bowl.
Yeah,
right?
Snoop Dogg
Yes.
Arizona Bowl. It used to be Barstool, I think.
Yes, I believe you're correct.
Actually, I don't know why I said I think. I went to that one time. Whenever I was covering Wyoming against OU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, whenever they went to OT. I was out there running around on the sidelines.
That's a fun one to go to.
Yeah, it was a good time. But yeah.
But we got Miami, Colorado State.
Yes, we do.
And obviously Miami fell in the MAC championship to OU, as you mentioned. Colorado State.
Their primary rival is Wyoming.
You don't say their primary rival is Colorado?
No, they don't compete with Colorado. They
That's
compete
fair.
with Wyoming.
Okay.
Sorry, I wanted to keep the looping continuous.
Didn't they beat them last year? I know they didn't this year, but didn't they?
No, it was really close though.
Okay,
it was like a 3-point margin, and I think CSU was very like, look at us.
Yeah. Okay. Because I just remember Dion talking a lot, and people were like, "You barely beat Colorado State." You're like, "Come on."
Yeah.
But
it
yes,
was one of their 3 or 4, whatever it was, by the end of the year.
But speaking of barely beating, I do think this is going to be a very close game. I think this is going to be a fun matchup. Line at 2.5, 42.5 total. Advanced analytics, 23 points for Miami, 22.9 for Colorado State.
Okay.
50.23% to 49.77% chances of win.
Well, and I'm pretty excited about the quarterback matchup in this game.
Can I tell you why I'm not, though?
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Because both teams are losing receivers.
Yes.
Yes.
But that makes me more excited for the quarterback because that'll actually be a better test of who's good.
That's fair. That is a good point, and I do think for Gabbert, it will be interesting to see because he's losing his top 2 receivers. Colorado State losing theirs. One of those receivers is actually transferring to the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Coming to UC.
And of course, Torrey Horton's been out for a while, but
yes,
him not being on the field, there's a good chance you guys have heard his name, and him being all the way out in Colorado in the Mountain West, and you know who he is, tells you how good of a player he is.
Yes. And so, that you're right, that this will be a quarterback test.
Yeah.
I think it could really help Gabbert if he wants to go into the draft. I think it could give him a bit more of a chance of one of those late round pickups.
Yeah. Or at bare minimum, being a genuine practice squad kind of dude, to where it's like, oh, he could be our emergency quarterback on Sundays.
Yeah, he's our practice guy, or he could be a reserve. We can give him some preseason games, stuff like that. Nothing that he's done this year that I think is incredibly outstanding, but I think he's been very solid and very consistent. And I think that's what a lot of NFL teams are going to be wanting to look for. But NFL draft is still ways away because the NFL season is way too long now.
Yes, it is. It will need to take another preseason game off because nobody's playing in them anyways.
Yeah.
Also, because I did mention the quarterback battle,
Yes.
do want to mention Fowler Nicolosi just by name. His season's been kind of weird for the Rams. It wasn't that great to start, but he's had like back-to-back 400-yard games, and he's starting to throw it around the shop. So he had a lot of potential, and a lot of people had eyes on him at the start of the year. Starting to kind of come together on it, so should be an interesting test for the Redhawks defense.
Absolutely. And again, these are the games that I think the bowls are meant for in a way.
Yes.
Give those group of 5 teams some interesting
night.
Matchups. Give them it's a senior night, and I always like that.
Yep. Let them go out there one more time with their guys in a game that ultimately doesn't matter that much, other than maybe a coach's job here and there, and let them get that different environment, that neutral site, that the pomp and circumstance.
Enjoy some time out in Tucson. Get the whatever the sponsors.
And boy, is it easy to enjoy some time out in Tucson. That's a fun place to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, Snoop Dogg's there. Maybe don't enjoy the sponsor too much until you graduate.
Maybe there's another sponsor somewhere, but yeah, again, that's a 4:30 game on Saturday.
Yes.
And that's it for the college football lineup for right now.
Yeah.
We'll want to see what happens with Ohio State, what happens with Notre Dame as the playoffs move on. But we're getting to the end of the college football season, and you kind of had your emotional moment with high school, and I have my emotional moment with the end of bowl season, and yeah.
We can feel it coming on.
Yeah.
And it's getting tougher.
It is
Emotionally. But so the trend, I guess, of us changing, well, I say us, me changing the format of these high school things continues, because the first week we did players, last week we did teams, but Brad, this week is very crowd work heavy.
Okay.
So what we're going to do here is, and if this format sticks and is the way we do it, the rest of the way through, I would like to put it on record that this format changed because of how talented the MVC boys are.
Okay.
Because it was the first note I did for this week. We're doing the Miami Valley Conference, Cincinnati Hills League. I dive into the MVC boys. I'm looking at the standings, and I go, there's 5 teams that I need to talk about. We don't have 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because, as you guys understand, I hope, I am a little long-winded sometimes. And I want to tell you everything and anything about these schools, but instead of doing it that way, what I'm going to do is, since Brad doesn't necessarily get to go out on these high school shoots because you wake up at 2 in the morning.
I wake up before the sun has risen, yes.
Yes, and your sleep schedule is just a nightmare, to be honest with you. But
yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, of course, anytime, buddy. But because he doesn't necessarily get the exposure to these, I'm going to essentially deliver the sales pitch for the schools that we'll be talking about today, and he's going to tell me where his gut is leaning as far as who's going to win the division side of things, and then for the CHL, just the conference as a whole.
Yes.
So where better to start than the aforementioned MVC boys?
Yes.
Quick rundown.
I'm taking my notes.
Yes. Quick rundown so you know what you're dealing with.
Yes.
Last year, Summit Country Day had the best record in the Scarlet Division with 17-7. CCD had the best record in the Gray Division, 19-5. MVCA had the deepest run, but it was only to the district finals. So not really too much playoff aspiration from last year to worry about.
Sure.
We'll start with the Gray Division.
Okay.
So Seven Hills Stingers is who I want to start with first.
Okay.
They're off to a 6-0 start. Their defense is absurd.
Okay.
They are allowing 37.7 points per game right now. They're not letting games get close, and they are led by a certified stud in Terrence Yarborough, 19.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 3.3 steals. It's that Kemba situation.
Yeah.
It's that UConn front man take over for you. Terrence Yarborough's got that.
I like that.
Good.
I like that.
We're off to a hot start. Now, there's only 2 teams in the Gray Division that we're going to hit on here.
Okay.
And then the second one, Miami Valley Christian Academy, MVCA, they had that deepest playoff run like we talked about. As of right now, they're off to a 5-1 start. Their key thing is offense. They score over 70 points a game. High school level, that's Steph Curry.
That's pretty tough. Yeah.
That's insanity. They are led by a 3-headed dragon here. They've got Gavin French, who does 19 points per game, give or take. Cody Heap, who gets about 16 and also 5 boards.
Okay.
And then Colin Geerding, he's their main assist man, 7.3 assists a game. So you've got a little bit of everything coming from those three guys.
You've got your shooter, you've got your disher, you got your guy grabbing the boards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's only a 1 point, not 1 point, but 1 game differential between them right now, 6-0, 5-1. So if you're looking at this grade division between those top two, what are you leaning, defense or offense?
I was about to go into this big long spiel. Well, let me tell you about the value of defense versus offense. I mean, I like Seven Hills personally.
Yeah.
See, here's my thing. Here's my thing with MVCA. I like having three guys that are the core
Right.
to a team
That's
versus the one top, if that makes sense. But allowing 37.7 points per game is crazy.
Yes.
And I think that that's unstoppable force meets immovable object type thing. I think the immovable object stops the force.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you're gonna have me say like, oh, if these guys are gonna meet in playoffs or whatever, I think I take Seven Hills still.
Okay.
With the caveat of they need to keep that defense going.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
if it is more than just your one guy, those guys need to keep need to keep that shooter, keep that board man locked down.
Yeah.
Be grabbing the defensive rebounds when the shooters miss and things like that.
Yeah, and not to say Yarborough's on a lonely island or anything.
No.
He does have his guys, but obviously that big draw being somebody who can just completely take over a game.
Yes.
So all right, we're rolling with Seven Hills in the
Yes.
Gray Division. So let's switch over here to the Scarlet side of stuff. We've got Summit Country Day.
Okay.
The Silver Knights are undefeated so far. They actually have the lowest points per game in conference, so 36.3 a game.
Okay.
Completely shut out. Their team shooting numbers are really efficient, and they kind of go for a little bit more of an ensemble thing as far as points go. They're led by Max Joyner. He gets about 15 points, but he also gets 9 rebounds a game. So big board man. Caleb Walters, beyond valuable, averaging a little less on both sides there. And then Tim Marin, I believe, 10 and 5. They're a really good rebounding team. So defense and boards is where you're leaning for is for Summit Country Day.
And remind you said the points per game was
36.3.
That's what they're allowing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So defense and boards, this is where you're going.
Okay.
Number 2, we'll talk about CHCA, the Eagles. They're second in conference for points per game, a little over 60. But they're already 4-1 in conference.
Okay.
So, pretty promising, at least to me. And then kind of a similar ordeal with a takeover guy, Luke Sanders, 21 points per game, shooting just a shade under 38 from 3. Gets 5.5 rebounds, a steal and a half a game. He's the one driving that team.
Okay.
And then number 3, Clark Montessori. They're off to a 7-1 start. Their only loss is to CHCA. So the team we just got done talking about there.
Okay.
They've got close wins and blowouts on the resume, which is always something I love to see. Doesn't really matter where that game's going. They stay calm.
Sure.
And then you've got a duo of Anthony Robinson Austin, who gets about 15.5 points per game, 11 rebounds, 2.6 blocks. I mean, just a menace in the paint. And then Amani Foster, also getting about 14 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists a game. This one was by far the hardest one whenever I was looking at it, because there's so much depth and so much value in the Scarlet side of this conference.
There really is, because I almost like CHCA.
Yeah.
Even with Summit being undefeated, you said.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that. I kind of like what you're telling me with CHCA.
Yeah, I mean, so what I'm learning right now is that you love that takeover guy.
I do.
You
I
love
like that guy. I like having a guy.
Yes. Well, and especially at the high school level, you have a guy,
Yes.
and that changes the game completely. So, yeah, and to play devil's advocate, if I was picking one, I think I might lean Clark Montessori.
Okay.
I really am interested by that duo of Robinson Austin and Foster. I think that there's a lot of potential there. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to go wrong with any of them, to be honest.
Yeah, this feels like a very tight conference in a way that some of the others that you've mentioned before may not be as tight, even within the top 3 and stuff like that.
Yeah, you definitely run into issues, like obviously since we already talked about it, like the ECC, you have your primary players and your guys that you just know are going to be there every year. This year for the MVC feels like, I'm trying to think of a good conference comparison, kind of like the Big 12.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Big 12 football.
Yeah, I like that.
Where it's just like, I have no idea who's going to win this thing, but I am watching it all the way through.
You even honestly kind of say like Big Ten basketball right now.
Yeah.
And then there's also been years where like it could be Michigan State, it could be Penn State, or it could be Michigan State, it could be Indiana, it could be Ohio State, it could be Purdue, like it could be Penn State. Penn State just hasn't been as aggressive and prevalent type thing, but yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. So.
Yeah. So there you go.
And what about on the girls' side?
Yeah. So we'll do that quick recap again, and I think I'm immediately going to give away who you're going to pick for Scarlet.
Okay.
So best record last year out of that division, Purcell Marion, 29-1.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they're the reigning D2 champs.
Yeah.
Best record on the gray side of stuff, Seven Hills, 20-4, and they actually don't make the list this year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a lot of grads. It was a lot of I don't want to say overperforming, but they hit their ceiling, so to speak. And while it was a very impressive year for them, I do think their regression's starting to set in a little bit.
Sure.
And we have 2 on each side. So very heads or tails situation here.
All right, Brad, let's talk about Cincinnati Christian first.
Yep.
They're outscoring opponents by 22 points a night. They're 8-2 so far, 6-0 in conference. They shoot the 3 ball the best in the conference. And then, to be honest, I'm not even going to have stats, specific for these players because there's so many of them that are crucial to this team. Elena Fitzgerald, Savannah Johnson, Kaylin Davis, Addison Raby, Serena Cypria. So 5 folks there. Each have more than 8 points per game, less than 10. And then they each, find their, somebody will have the rebounds and somebody will have the assists. And it's very balanced.
Very communal.
Right, yes,
Sure.
yes. Very, very holiday themed, like the meals you're probably sharing right now. And then their opponent, so to speak, for the gray side of stuff, MVCA. They're 7-2 so far. They're a really good rebounding team, led by Lucy Rosen, one of those takeover players, 18.7 a game, almost 14 rebounds. So she is comfortably in double-digit a night territory. And then you've also got Haley Farmer, back there behind her, 12-4-4, 7 steals a game average.
Ooh.
Yeah, if that total keeps up, that's DPOI.
Yeah. That's dirty.
It's freaky. I mean, I was scrolling through her numbers, and I was just like, there's no way that's real. And then looked through the box scores, and it was like 6 a night, 8, 7, 8, it was like, oh my, what is happening? So, shout out Haley Farmer, because that is video game numbers, and that's putting it lightly.
Oh, man. See, is it wrong to be like, I'm like, wow, that's one of the most impressive things a player can do. All right, I'm going to go with the other team, because I am leaning Cincy Christian, just because I like 3-point shooters. I think if you get a 3-point shooter on a roll, it's harder to stop. And if I'm gonna put my chips on one, I'd put it on Cincy Christian, I think, for this too.
Well, and my big thought process to follow along with that is, how are you supposed to stop 5 people?
Yeah.
At the high school level, you're lucky if you have 3 folks that are like really capable of not only shutting down but contributing on offense.
Yes.
They've got 5 of them.
Yeah.
And those numbers are just going to be too hard to top. So, okay, we're rolling with Cincinnati Christian on that side of stuff. Now let's check out the Scarlet side. Spoiler, Purcell Marion returning.
I've heard about them.
Yeah, vaguely. Obviously, those reigning champs, 6-1 so far. If you like high scoring, they've got it, 72.9 points per game. Their defense kind of worries me a little bit down the stretch. I think they're letting some of these teams that I know that they've got more talent than, put up 50, ish a night. That, worries me whenever you get to the big ones. And then you've got a 3-headed beast here. D. Alexander, 19 points a game. Samaya Wilkins, 16 points and 8 boards. And then Kiera Miller, 14.5 points per game, 3 and 4. you're not going to be too hard pressed to find some luck on offense and get you some boards with those three on the court.
Yeah.
And then their big battle, somebody you've already selected. We move back to the girls' side for them though. CHCA, they are 9-1, and drawing up comparisons from the gray side of the boys, their defense, that's what we're leaning into. So it's a big offense versus defense situation. 36.3 a night allowed. And they don't really have a go-to scorer type, but they've got a handful of players that can contribute. Ava Dubose, Shea Bourne, Ellie Eldridge, Haley Myers. They're all going to make it work somehow. Old money or new money, Brad?
I kind of like CHCA.
Yeah.
I think it's hard. I'm not going to pretend for a second that my interest in a lot of women's basketball didn't come out of teams like UConn doing crazy things and repeating championships so many years and having such long streaks of undefeated systems. And then when I lived in Toledo, there was a local player that played for USC. Not USC, South Carolina, the other USC.
The real USC.
Under Don Staley, and learning about that program, and you also learn about Tennessee, and you hear about all these different women's programs that have such great history. And on top of that, Purdue does have a national championship with the women's team.
They do.
I like when teams are able to stop the repeats from happening.
Yes.
So you have a defending champion in Purcell Marion. I want to see CHCA knock them down.
Cost them crazy. Yeah. I obviously would probably lean Purcell Marion just on been there, done that, a lot of the same folks. But I do think CHCA deserves some love and attention there. Of course, that's why they got featured on this list, right? So,
That's why I'm giving them the love, too.
Yeah. So to recap, let's see. On the boys' side of stuff, you had...
Recap my picks.
You had Seven Hills.
Yep.
You had CHCA.
Yep.
You had Cincinnati Christian girls.
Yes.
And then you had the CHCA girls. So you think CHCA is going double division winners?
Yeah.
We might have to get you an Eagle shirt, buddy. That's might have to rep that on the next hat. Now I will.
That would be a good hat.
Yeah.
Next hat.
That's what I'm saying. If they send me out to CHCA for basketball at any point, and I see a merch stand, I'll get you something.
Pick it up for me. I love it.
I'll get you something. I'll keep you in mind on that one. Now. The CHL games going to be way easier to digest.
Gotcha.
I think we have 4 in total. Between boys and girls.
Okay.
So this is purely for the conference, and we'll do a quick rundown of how the boys went last year. Wyoming had the best record, 24-4. Lost in the regional final to Alter. Was also the deepest playoff run.
Yes.
So we'll just stick with the Cowboys here. They're 6-0. They are 3rd in conference for points per game, and lowest points allowed per game.
Ooh, okay.
So really nice split there. You're looking at a 3-headed beast here with Darren Gray. He's their, I don't want to even call him their primary because all of their 3-headed monsters are within 2 points per game of each other. So Darren Gray is at 16.5 points per game. Devin Evans is at 15 points per game. Kellen Wiley, 14.5 per game.
Yeah.
And we know they can play some defense. So definitely something to worry about, as they usually are. And then their big counterpart this year, I'm going to give it to the Taylor Yellow Jackets. They are 4-1, 2nd in conference in points per game. They're averaging about 63 a game.
Okay.
And then their defense is a little worrisome. I don't know if it'll be able to keep up down the stretch. You're going to be leaning on A.J. Dean to take over a lot of games, 17.5 points per game. And then the duo behind him of Noah Wentz, Jackson Snell. They'll give you some patchwork. They'll give you some boards. They'll give you some assists.
I think this one I got to go to Wyoming.
Yeah.
Just from the way you make it sound, that defense does sound strong.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like it's already found the gear mesh
Yes.
that you need. Obviously, Taylor could, I think, turn things around, get that defense cooking, and
Absolutely.
Cause an upstart. But
from
where we're sitting right now, it's I'm looking at Wyoming.
And the thing that really impresses me about the Cowboys is it's real easy to have 3 people who can score on a roster. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to have a roster that is capable of setting up all 3 to all score consistently in the same night. and where it's like, I'll get 18 if you'll get 18 and you'll get 18. And to have that already working this early in the year means that there's probably going to be some 25, 25, 20 type nights, and you don't want to run into that.
No.
So yeah,
Running a meat grinder.
And that is putting it generously. So yeah, okay. So we take Wyoming on that front one.
Taking Wyoming.
And then for this last one to round us out, the CHL girls side of stuff. Indian Hill and Taylor finished at 14-5 last year.
Okay.
So double up there. Madeira actually had the deepest playoff run just to the district finals, though.
Okay.
So we mentioned only one of the teams that I just talked about.
Okay.
We got Indian Hill. They're sticking around, 5-1 so far. Their lone loss was an 8-point game against Chaminade Julienne, who we've talked about. In our big GCL episode, we do think they're going to be really good. They beat Marymount, who we'll talk about here in just a minute, 35-22.
Okay.
Second highest scoring totals in the conference. And then Annie Rosenfield, Caroline Longworthy, kind of in the ship. Neither one of them really take over, but get the points you need. Keep it simple.
Working together.
Yes.
Accenting the other.
Yeah. Then obviously, just push to it. Marymount, the Warriors, they're off to a 6-1 start. They did lose by 13 to the Braves, like we had just mentioned.
Yes.
But they're only allowing 30 points per game.
Okay.
And is a testament to the fact that they held Indian Hill to 35. That defense does work more often than it doesn't, but they are kind of isolated to Miller Spear being that primary scorer, 15.8 points per game, shooting almost 44 from three. Just not a ton behind them in terms of scoring, and there are some concerns about maybe being an easy game plan.
Okay.
If you can isolate Miller, what does that leave for the rest of the team? I'd love to see some other folks kind of step up into that role a little more often.
Yeah, I think when you talk about a player that needs to get isolated, and then can they make it happen? Mm-hmm. They only make it happen when they're like Caitlin Clark.
True.
Type thing.
Very true.
I think there's a few others that you can draw from of like Juju.
Yeah.
With USC right now.
The real trick with this one is knowing how the game's already gone and deciding if you trust Marymount to figure out the scoring more or if you trust Indian Hill to be able to
That's a good point.
steer.
I think I kind of like Indian Hill more still off the dome.
Yeah. And the one loss being just to Sham Julienne, like that's like you get over that.
Yeah, it's not a bad loss.
And 8 points at that,
Yeah, I'll lock in Indian Hill.
Cool. There you go. So I'll make a graphic. After we get off here, I'll do the note. I will make a graphic. You'll have it up on your screen now of what all Brad picks. So that way you can torment him if these conferences go sideways, or you can torment me if the winner ends up not have been on this list.
Yes, and you, yeah, I like that. If I pick the wrong team, of him picking the right teams,
yes,
torment me. If he picks the wrong team entirely, don't even come for me.
He can't know any better. You know what I mean? Like this is my jurisdiction. You can't catch the heat for a team that's not even represented.
He's the high school guy.
Yes.
You should know the high school.
100%.
Yes. But yeah, okay, so yeah,
I like that format a lot.
I like that too, and I hope that all you listening at home like that as well.
Yeah.
Make your picks as well. Let us know what you think, and
yeah, get in the comment section or find us on Twitter or let us know because we'd love to hear from you guys or if there's something you see that you're like, hey, maybe if they did it this way, it might resonate a little bit more. We love those too.
Yes.
We want to hear from you guys because this podcast is for you. It's not for us.
Yes, and you'll be able to see at the end on the video version our Twitter handles, and maybe we can include that in the description on Spotify.
Yeah, I can absolutely make that happen.
Yeah, that'll be easy. But that's our Christmas week episode. Don't forget that the Holiday Hardwood Classic is happening on Friday.
I'm gonna be there.
And Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Noon is first tip-off both days. Last tip-off is 8:45, so it'll probably go until about 10.
Yeah.
$12 ahead of time if you want to buy tickets through Xavier's website. You can also show up day of, and they will be $15 or you can donate a canned good, non-perishable food item, save $3, get it for the price that you would have gotten it ahead of time.
Or if you order it online, just bring your canned goods.
Also bring canned goods.
Yeah.
It goes to help the Free Store Food Bank.
It's a great
You're
cause.
doing a great cause,
Yeah.
Especially around the holiday season where places like that, like blood centers, can always use whatever help they can get.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Jackson, thank you as always for joining me.
Absolutely, on this fine Christmas day.
And thank you all for joining us this Christmas week. We will see you again next week.
Yeah, have a good one.